Boom, boom, boom. And we'll give everybody just a second to walk, run, scream, do whatever you gotta do to get on in here, man. I can't believe we're in a new year, man.
Yeah,
2025. Here we go.
2024 went way too fast. I just every time like the next month came on, I couldn't believe it. So here we are, 2025. So
New
time to get over
year, new year, new you, new Broncos. I don't know. Are the Broncos going to get in the playoffs, Tom? We've got a lot to cover, man. We were off last week. Very belated Merry Christmas and happy holidays to all of our friends and all of our family. And Happy New Year to everybody, right? To all the guys, the fellas, the gals out there here in MHH. We appreciate each and every single one of you. And what's up, guys? It's Wednesday night. It's MHI. It's New Year's Day. Thomas Hall. We have a ton to get into, man. We're going to talk about the Broncos practice report a little bit today. We're going to talk Broncos Pro Bowlers, implications of a Chiefs loss. What could that mean? Who's going to be starting at quarterback for Kansas City? We're going to get all that and more. But before we do, Thomas Hall, how we doing, man? How are the holidays for the Hall family? You guys doing good?
Yeah, it was good. Low key, nice holidays. Nothing too extravagant. So we just kind of eased into the new year. So it was good. Yeah.
I like that, easing into the new year. Well, the holidays were good for me as well. Only I would have liked an early Christmas gift, a late Christmas gift. I mean, the Broncos getting in the playoffs would be nice. I didn't think we would be here, Tom, in two different ways. What do I mean by that? One, the Broncos have secured a winning season. That hasn't happened, the last 7 or 8 years? But 3 weeks in a row, the Broncos are having an opportunity or will have an opportunity to punch that playoff ticket. Thought they would do it against the Chargers. Boo. They laid an egg out in LA. Thought they would do it against the Cincinnati Bengals. They lose 30-24 in an overtime game that some are calling one of the very best regular season games this season. Tom, we'll get into some Bengals leftovers, but some gut reactions from you, at least, regarding that overtime loss, because everybody had an opinion on it, and everybody still does, right?
Yeah, it is unfortunate, man. I was like, you got 3 games to get one, and now you've got 1 game to get one, so it's a little bit tough. But yeah, it was a. They weren't playing very well, I didn't think, most of the game. So I was surprised it ended up being as close as it did after the first few drives that the Bengals had out there. So, yeah, it was rough. But I'll say this. The one thing that boggles my mind, the Broncos had 7 sacks. And they lost, and they gave up 30 points. That to me is mind-boggling, because ran the numbers, and you go from a 36% chance of scoring on a drive to 4 if there's a sack on the drive. Yet they almost had 50% of their scores or their drives scored. I just don't know what the heck was happening. It was a bad day all around.
Set a franchise best record, Tom. We talked about it on these airwaves, right? It's been all over Mile High Huddle. We track these milestones every single week. And when the defense can just do what they did to Joe Burrow and him not even flinch. I mean, it's very frustrating. We're going to get into some of those offensive problems, but a franchise best 58 sacks in 16 games. Tom, as you know, that surpasses the 57 sack total in 16 games played back in 1984. And it's brutal. I've been a little overreactive the last 2 weeks, especially with these losses, because I've gotten on the bandwagon, man. For the first time in a long time, I'm really rooting for the Broncos. I've really had to put myself in check and try to be not so biased in some of my writing and some of my podcasting, because I want this team to win, and I want them to win now. I wasn't expecting it. That's why I'm on the bus, man. And there's room, ladies and gents. There's room on the bus for everyone that wants to come on. But geez, Tom, I mean, 2 weeks in a row, the Broncos sting and kick themselves in the tail. And something's telling me we're not going to get a gift wrapped late Christmas present from the backups with the Kansas City Chiefs this Sunday.
Yeah, and speaking of jumping off bandwagons, I'm on the Broncos bandwagon, but Vance Joseph's bandwagon is starting to thin out, I think, because he's been pretty poor the last few weeks. So, the old Vance Joseph is starting to come back into the fold, it seems, and that's been unfortunate.
Yeah, we're going to get into Vance Joseph's defense, Sean Payton's offense, some of that play calling, the 2-point conversion. Should they have went for it? I want to know everybody's thoughts. We have a lot to catch up on here on the show. And Papa Bear David kicking us off. happy holidays, belated Merry Christmas, and Happy New Year to you and your family, Dave. Really, really appreciate everything you do for us here at MHH. Saying Happy New Year, Broncos country, 10-7, buck 'em. MHH for life, SEAL Team Knicks. Let's go, Bo. David, another one of those members of Broncos country that's in the trenches with me, right? I mean, we are rocking and rolling with these Denver Broncos. Tom, I asked you a question a couple weeks ago, and I guess I want to ask it to you again, just to see if there's any sort of shift in your response. Everyone reserves the right to change their mind. Do ugly wins bother you, Thomas Hall? Because I wouldn't give a gee whiz if the Broncos won by 1 point against the backup Kansas City Chiefs team. I'm not saying that's what I think is going to happen, but I'm nervous. I'm scared, Tom. I'm scared of the backups in Kansas City, if I'm going to be completely honest, because I don't know which Denver Broncos team is going to show up this Sunday at 2:25 p.m. at Empower Field at Mile High.
The thing about that question was I answered it a certain way. I'll take a win no matter what, but ugly wins bother me because they can often predict what might start happening in the next couple games, and that's exactly what's happened. I had some doubts with that ugly win, and then it started to rear its ugly head again the last 2 weeks.
Well, and maybe there's something to that too, right? Sean Payton has talked about always having, well, he hasn't talked about it. His record has shown it's important to have a winning record, right? In October, November, I think December, they went 2-2 technically, right? On this 2-game spiral, dare I say, for the Denver Broncos. But the news came down today that Carson Wentz for the Kansas City Chiefs is going to get the start. Zach wrote about it, I believe, over at milehighhuddle.com. And while I want to snicker, while I want to think the Broncos have this thing in the bag, there is no such thing, Tom. And to see this offense struggle the way they did in Cincinnati, I mean, things should start to be trending up for the Denver Broncos. And don't get me wrong, there were some exciting plays. We can talk about the Marvin Mims bomb, right? The longest air yard per attempt pass this season by any quarterback. We can talk about that. But for all those little silver linings, there's a bunch of Sean, what are we thinking? You can't run out the clock? Sean, what are we thinking? We can't get a 100-yard rusher in 32 games? Sean, what are we thinking? You're putting this on Bo Nix? I mean, a lot of head-scratching moves. As you sit here, new year, right? It's time to maybe turn the page on 2024 a little bit. How do you feel? Do you feel that a new month, a new start for this Broncos team, even though it's the last game, would do them some good, especially here at Denver, Colorado at home?
Yeah, something's got to change. It's funny. I was thinking about this the other day, and I was like, what they need is a motivational speaker or somebody to come change their mindset, because I don't think Sean Payton's that type of guy. I think he's great execution wise, making sure everybody is, the discipline and all that. But is he going to go in there and like do a rah-rah speech and get everybody motivated and change their mindset? I don't know if he's that type of guy. So something needs to happen. Some sort of shift. They need to wash out those last 2 games, go on it with a different aspect in their mind. And I think maybe a new year is going to bring that to them. Let's keep our fingers crossed with that.
It's interesting that you bring that up, Tom, because it's something we talk about every Wednesday night on this show. And I'm a Sean Payton guy. I like him. He was my #1 candidate. It doesn't mean that I don't get disappointed. It doesn't mean that I don't get frustrated. Doesn't mean I don't get mad at some of these decisions that Sean's been making, right? He is not immune from criticism, especially on this very show. But I think we tend to overreact as human beings, right? And I see it a lot over on X, social media, the worst thing ever, right? Sean needs to be fired. Our guy, DVA, one half of Saturday Night, OBV, man, he's coming in here saying, Sean, man, that was kind of a chump move, kind of a coward move. And I'm like, whoa. Let's pump the brakes up. You are entitled to be mad, but let's remember that quarterback carousel. Let's remember what it was like.
Yeah. Well, you can't forget what he's done. I mean, this franchise was in the, dire straits, and he's turned it around. So you can't knock him. You can't go out there and say, oh, he made 1 or 2 bad decisions in a game and then forget all that he's done to get this team to a winning record for the first time in almost a decade, on the cusp of playoffs. So you can't do that, but you can be mad in the moment. And that's me. I get mad in the moment. I say things, and but not,
You may say things, Tom, but you're not tweeting them because I don't see them. So maybe you just, you put yourself on mute and like I asked Adam Schefter years ago once, I'm like, man, like a piece of advice, right? And he's like, think twice before you press the tweet button, right? Because we all remember what it was like for the Denver Broncos to be underdogs. And I think they're favored this week, but still, man, the Broncos need to be looking at it with an underdog mentality. And guys, speaking of Underdog is the place to play if you're a sports fan looking to win money while watching sports. Join over 5 million fans who are already playing on Underdog. With their pick'em game, you could win money by making entries with your favorite players. Compete against other players just by selecting higher or lower on 2 or more player stats, and you could win up to 1,000 times your money. Turn every touchdown into a win with Underdog.
And with their champs game, you could win up to 1,000 times your money just by choosing higher or lower on player stats like passing yards, interceptions, touchdowns, and much more. Like, for example, will Bo Nix have higher or lower than 220.5 passing yards next week? Will Nix have higher or lower than 1.5 passing touchdowns? Every dog deserves a second chance, and with Underdog Rescues, you can get your money back and receive a promo if an early injury causes your entry to lose.
Boom, guys, download the Underdog app today. Use code MHuddle to get up to $1,000 in bonus cash instantly. Again, guys, download the Underdog app today. Use our code MHuddle to get up to $1,000 in bonus cash instantly. Every player, every touchdown, just select higher or lower on Underdog.
Must be 18 plus, 19 plus Alabama, Nebraska, 19 plus in Colorado for some games, 21 plus Massachusetts and Arizona, and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms applied, void in Colorado. Concerned with your play, call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit ncpgambling.org. Arizona's 1-800-NEXT-STEP or text next-step to 53342. New York, call the 24/7 HOPE line at 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY.
Boom. Guys, he is Thomas Hall. I am Luke Patterson. This is MHI on your Wednesday night. We're getting into some Bengals leftovers. We're going to talk about the Broncos Chiefs practice report. We're going to preview the game, talk about some playoff implications, scenarios, if you will, and the big what if, right? What if Denver does this on Sunday? We will let you know what that is and what possible outcomes those could be. But before we get there, Phil McLaughlin, one of our very close friends over on Facebook. Happy holidays and Happy New Year here on this New Year's Day edition of MHI. Phil kicking us off. Good evening, Thomas, Luke, and Deacon Scott. Happy New Year. Going to be fun to see Allen get a couple more sacks this week. Hashtag Buckham, MHH for life, and Broncos for life. Zach Allen. Tom, I did not see this kind of season coming from Zach Allen. One of the most productive, aggressive, and dare I say, well-conditioned defensive lineman I've ever seen play. This man hardly misses a snap. His cardio is insane. He's a run stuffer. He's a pass rusher. What do you make of Big 99 right now? Because I got to be honest, Tom, I knew he was going to do well middle of the season when we saw what he was doing. But then when he was walking around Las Vegas with that boot and he didn't play against the Raiders, in week 12, I started to wonder, oh no, is Big Cat starting to falter? Zach Allen's not missing a beat. Phil's onto something here.
Yeah, it's funny because 2 years ago when we were at training camp, he was a wrecking crew, and we thought, man, Zach Allen's going to have a monster year. Well, it took him a year for that to actually come to fruition. So here, I can't believe it. He is playing out of his mind, and you're right. The more you play, the more chance you have of injury, getting worn out a little bit. Your body takes that beat. He was a monster in that Cincinnati Bengals game. It was incredible. And it's great to see. That was a great free agent pickup. Everybody was kind of lamenting the Draymond Jones leaving, and then you bring in Zach Allen, who, we didn't really know that much about. We knew he was a decent player, but he's far exceeded my expectations for this year.
Yeah, well, here's what we knew about him. We knew that he was friends with J.J. Watt, and he was like a poor man's J.J. Watt, whatever the hell that meant, right? Like, I could remember me saying those very words. So, Phil, you're exactly right, man. I mean, I'm trying to pull up the stats real quick from the last game. I mean, Zach Allen outplayed Trey Hendrickson, and you talk about that one-man wrecking crew. That was one of my keys to victory. Avoid the one-man wrecking crew with Trey Hendrickson, man, because that guy has been playing out of his mind.
He had 3.5 sacks, if I remember correctly.
For crying out loud.
Yeah.
It's incredible. I get super excited watching defensive linemen. John Franklin Myers has been another one of those guys that has been so consistent. He was so, at least for me, Tom, an underwhelming addition. I did not see this sort of thing coming with the Broncos defense. What's going on with your guy? What's going on with Nick Bonito? Tom,
yeah, I don't know.
I mean, like, here's what I'm going to say, and I've been thinking about you, right? Because we like to say on this show that Nick Bonito's your guy and Jonathan Cooper's my guy, and we've got it all figured out here every Wednesday night on MHI. Jonathan Cooper and Nick Bonito, they take a slight step back in a couple games. I know Coop got 1.5 sacks the last game, some nasty penalties against the Chargers, but even when the Broncos' 2 premier pass rushers aren't hitting, they're still getting pressure with a Jonah Ellis, right? A Cody Barton who's been playing out of his mind. You're getting these DB blitzes that are still hitting. I would love to say that Vance Joseph's defense is continuing to adapt, but it only feels like with the defensive line and linebackers, we're still having some holes with that secondary, Tom.
Yeah, it is a strange. Sacks are streaky. I don't think Nick Benito's playing bad. He just hasn't.
No,
he hasn't gotten home, or he does, and there's a penalty or whatever. So, but sack artists can be kind of streaky, and he had a long streak there. So maybe he'll come up big in the next game and get a couple sacks, and then I can say I'm a Nick Bonito guy again.
No, you're exactly right. Well, and here's something that I've watched the last 2 weeks with Nick Bonito. Going back, I watched some of the film earlier this morning. Matlock for the Chargers, that converted defensive lineman into a fullback. Man, he was pretty much wham blocking Nick Bonito every single play a couple weeks ago. Well, the Bengals don't like to traditionally use a fullback or D lineman, at least the same way that the Chargers offense does. But adding that extra chip against Nick Bonito has been affecting him so far. It'll be interesting to see what the Chiefs defense does, if you will. I wonder what life is like in Kansas City today. It must be pretty nice knowing that you get to kick back and maybe still ruin your AFC West rival season. I mean, put yourself in the Kansas City Chiefs locker room. You're Andy Reid right now, Tom. What's the game plan? What's the mindset for this week? Because I got to be honest, I was worried about it as soon as the Broncos lost in overtime in Cincinnati, 30-24 last week, and everyone's still having the argument, just like our guy Brandon. You had to go for a 2-point conversion. Win or lose, that would have been the right choice. Tom, before we go too much longer, what did you want Sean Payton and the Broncos offense to do in that moment? Because I feel like everybody's split here. I know we're split in Mile High Huddle. I've been saving this question for you here on Wednesday night. What should Sean have done?
I think you should have went for 2. And this is why I say that. Number one, you've got another game to go and try and win it all, win it to get in the playoffs. You're getting moved. The Bengals were throwing the ball at will, pretty much moving up and down the field. You don't know what the coin toss is going to be. Go for 2. If you don't get it, oh well, you got that next game. Go be aggressive. Just be aggressive. If you got it, then you win. You're in the playoffs, and then you can go into the next week's game trying to better your position if you have that opportunity. But I would have went for 2 if I was him. But then you think about, well, what if you just tied? Well, what would you have gotten in with a tie? Probably. Why not just run the clock out and get in with a tie?
Well, because you can't run the clock. And that's my problem with going for it. I am on the opposite side, though I agree with you, Tom. You can make an argument for either. So I guess that's why I'm not too upset. I don't feel like that specific call lost them the game. No. Because there were so many in that game, right? So many snafus, so many boneheaded play calls, poor execution, whatever you want to call it. And I just had this debate with my dad in his kitchen before the show started. He's like, Luke, they got to go for it. They have all the momentum, just like you're telling me. And I'm like, I hear you, but I'm asking, you trust this offense with the game on the line, with a 2-point conversion, with playoffs on the line, when you know you at least have one game next week? That's not this scenario this week, Tom. There is not a next week for the Denver Broncos. I mean, they are starting to strike out. Third time a charm to punch this playoff ticket, because man, I'm nervous. I don't know how else to say this, folks. I do not think this Chiefs team wants to just come in here and have the backups get embarrassed. I could see Andy Reid saying, look, we're looking for starters next year too. We're looking for who's going to get more playing time in these playoffs if somebody goes down. And the Chiefs have ruined my evening and my year on more than one occasion, Tom.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're going to play their backups. I don't think Andy Reid's going to mess around. He knows that Super Bowl is the main goal, so he's going to bring him out. Whether he can motivate lesser talent to come up and beat the starters for the Broncos is yet to be seen. It's just one of those things where, I mean, Vegas and everybody else, the betting world is saying they're going to play their backups. You know, the talent level is just not going to be there. But at the same time, you've got back-to-back championship team. Their backups, you know, they've got nice depth. So you never know. You never know.
Yeah, Dylan Von Arx has a really good piece up at milehighhuddle.com where he's breaking it down, and NFL.com has some of these playoff scenarios, and Dylan has a really good piece in there. And in the piece, it talks about how the Broncos have lost any of their wiggle room, and they truly have. Their backs are against the wall. I'm happy it's in Denver. But I guess I want to know from Broncos country, how we feeling? How we feeling about this game? Because Broncos going on what, a 2-game losing streak to end the season, and then what, the Kansas City Chiefs are going to come in here. What if the Kansas City Chiefs win? I'm not saying that's my prediction. I'm not saying I'm hoping that happens. We'll wait till Friday, right, over at milehighhuddle.com. The Mile High Roundtable picks. Tom, are you still in the lead for that thing, by the way? I know
I'm a game behind. I'm a game behind first place.
But who's counting, right? So
Yeah,
we'll have to check out Tom's prediction this Friday at milehighhuddle.com. I'm nervous. I'm worried. Tom, what if the unthinkable happens? What if the Kansas City Chiefs, led by Carson Wentz, comes into Denver, Colorado, Sunday at 2:25 Mountain Time and beat the Denver Broncos? What are the ramifications, if any, for a nightmare scenario for this team, this city, this fan base, and this franchise?
Well, there's going to be huge disappointment to not make it. So being this close, you only had to win one of the last 3 and you were in, and to lose 3 in a row is going to be a huge disappointment. The ramifications, I don't think, are going to be much, depending on one thing. And the reason why I don't think that is they've overachieved what everybody thought they were going to do. Most people thought that the Broncos were barely going to win 5 games. Some had more, some had less, but nobody thought that they'd be knocking on the playoff door this season. So I think that there's going to be very few ramifications. Now, if the Chiefs backups on offense roll over Vance Joseph's defense, there's going to be a ramification for that. I think Vance Joseph had his opportunity to come back, and he did it. He got back on the horse, and got out of the doghouse, had a good defense, and then he's back, back in the doghouse again.
We're back.
Yeah, if the backups roll him over, then you might see some ramifications for Vance Joseph and his job.
Just Vance Joseph, just not Sean Payton. I'm not saying this is where I would go, but I think it would be fair to start having a convert. Really, Sean, you finished the last year, and we get it, right? You're Greg Penner, you're Kerry Walton Penner. You're having this conversation. We get it. Not a lot of expectations from the outside world considering this season. But you lose the last 3 games, and you could have punched that ticket in just one of those 3 games. The last game at home in front of this fan base against the scrubs, And I say that loosely, right? I can't make it in the league. Hell, I could probably barely throw a football if I wanted to. It's just, man, that's what makes me nervous. Broncos country, let us know in the chat, man, if the unthinkable happens this Sunday and the Chiefs upset the Broncos. Can't believe I'm saying that. The backup Chiefs upset your Denver Broncos. What do you think, or what should the ramifications be? Max weighing in a very generous $5 over on YouTube. Happy New Year, Broncos country, from Manitoulin Island. Let's take care of business Sunday. Let's go Broncos. Max, correct me if I'm wrong. I think this is a Canadian member of Broncos country here, right? I think this specific island, if memory serves, Lake Huron, I believe. So Broncos country, again, not a geographical location, a state of being. Our flagship here at Mile High Huddle. Max, we thank you so much for all of your support. And yeah, man, Broncos country out there in Canada, they want to see this win. I know they got some red in their flag, right? Some white in their flag. It's all orange this Sunday up there in Canada, baby.
Yeah, thanks, Max. Appreciate you coming in from Canada. Thanks for being here. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a disappointment if they don't. They need to take care.
A disappointment? That's it? It would be a sin. Is it forgivable, Tom? Really? Is it
Yeah.
forgivable? I'd have a hard time forgiving Sean. I really
Yeah.
would. And I don't know the circumstances, right? I'm saying, what would happen if the Broncos lose? Well, I think it matters how they lose that game, right? I mean, are we doing the same sort of offensive play calling we've been doing the last few weeks? And really the whole season, I've been screaming it every Wednesday night here on MHI. It feels to me like Sean's trying to be the smartest guy in the room. He's trying to reinvent the wheel instead of doing what he does best. And he, I don't know, maybe it's why I like him. I'm an overthinker. I overthink and worry about things that I shouldn't ever, that never come to fruition. It feels like Sean is paranoid, but he's battling himself. He's his own worst enemy. Does Sean Payton have somebody in that building that will push back against him and say, Coach, we may want to rethink this move? Coach, I'm not so sure about that. I don't know if it's offensive coordinator Lombardi. I really don't. I don't know what his role in the Sean Payton offense is. Davis, the quarterback coach, I don't know what his role is with Bo Nix right now at this point in time. But I'll tell you this, you talk about Vance Joseph potentially being on the chopping block or leaving Denver for a head coaching gig. Mike Vrabel's sitting out there, Tom. I've been thinking a lot about Mike Vrabel, and Mike Vrabel would definitely, I feel, push back against Sean Payton if he needed to. I think a Rex Ryan would. It's reasons why I wanted Rex here. I'm thinking you need another big, loud personality. Now, that's not always going to work, but Sean, I do my best when I'm challenged by others. If not, I like to stick in my comfort zone, and that can get you so far, but it's really when we get challenged, I think the best of us can come out.
You would hope that he surrounded himself with a staff that is able to push back. You hope that if you're a good leader, you have people that are there to question whether or not that's the right decision. And if he has just surrounded himself by yes men, then this isn't going to work out. I'm sorry. So I don't think
is Vance Joseph a yes man? Would you think so? I would.
Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to say. I'm not in that locker room. My feeling is that he's not one of those that push back, but I also think that Joe Lombardi's been with Sean Payton long enough that they probably are comfortable doing that with each other. But you would hope so. You would hope that somebody would say, Sean, this that you're doing isn't going to work. I know you wanted to make it work. It's just not going to work. And here are the reasons why. I hope so, because that's the only way he's going to get better.
Yeah, who's challenging Sean, right? I mean, is it going to be Greg Penner? That's kind of the boss. We know it's not George Payton, right? I mean, it's just kind of interesting. Eric Flynn, Happy New Year and happy holidays, man. Thank you so much for the generous support over on Facebook, guys. We really appreciate all the support. Facebook stars, super chats, they definitely help us keep the lights on every Wednesday night here on MHI. But as always, if you cannot donate, your time is the most valuable thing that we have as human beings on this planet. Thank you for rocking with us every Wednesday night. And here's a name I haven't heard in a long time, as Obi-Wan would say. Michael Remkio, man. Happy holidays out there in Arizona. Good evening, Thomas and Luke on the Mile High Insiders. And happy New Year. Go Bo Broncos. Mike, man, that jersey's looking sweet. He's been rocking with that jersey since April. And, man, I love it. Absolutely love it. If we want to be honest, the reason the Broncos haven't been winning, it's my wife's fault, Tom. Get her the Bo Nix jersey. I atone for the Russell Wilson jersey, right? We've been over that on the show at nauseum. But she didn't wear it last week. My daughter didn't wear her jersey last week. I'm like, this is your fault. You did this to us. So rest assured this Sunday, both will have their Knicks jerseys on, Mike. Really, really appreciate you, man. And hopefully you had nice holidays out there in Arizona. Cody Dubs coming in with $2 over on YouTube. Thank you, Cody, and happy New Year to you and yours. Hashtag all pro Benito. I like it. Tied with TJ Watt, 4th in sacks. Tom, we're talking about not seeing things coming, right? Who would have saw this season coming? A winning season with the Broncos, a possibility to get into the playoffs. You have a defensive player of the year candidate in Nick Benito and Pat Surtain. Well, then you get 14 Broncos finishing in the top 10 for Pro Bowl voting. Extra. You could read all about it. Chad Jensen has an article up over at milehighhuddle.com right now. And is that just a little tale of the tape on how good this season has been? I mean, I could sit here and be a nervous wreck for the backup Chiefs this Sunday coming to Denver, but this has been a fun football season, Tom. The Broncos are relevant again. They're winning again. I don't want to do this whole thing over with a quarterback and a head coach next year. No way.
I think what it does tell you is Broncos country is at least excited, right? This is a fan vote. So they're at least excited about the Pro Bowl and excited about the Broncos. They're on there talking about them. They're voting for the players. I mean, some of these players really, I mean, they don't deserve the Pro Bowl that are on this list, but it tells me that Broncos country is excited and that the Broncos are relevant again, at least for this season, right? They're a relevant team. You know, usually this time of the year, everybody's doing mock drafts. They don't care about the Pro Bowl, and they're figuring out what they're what they can hope for in the draft for next year to turn this thing around. So I think it's huge. I think 14 players in the top 10 voting it also is an indication some of those players are really good players. I mean, you got Benito, you've got Mims, you've got Pat Surtain. You got some people that deserve to be where they're at, which is a harbinger for next year. You keep those guys around, you're going to have talent, and you're going to put more talent around them. That means the team's just going to get better.
Well, and I forgot what the Pro Bowl really meant, to be honest with you, because not a lot of Broncos have been making it in, right? And to your point, Tom, we never mail it in here at Mile High Huddle. We're going 24/7. We've got shows every single day of the week. We've got articles being published literally overnight. So we never stop here. But Broncos country has taken their foot off the gas a little bit, right? In seasons past when things were done. Remember where we were last year when Russell Wilson was crying in his locker room and we're talking about Jarrett Stidham being the quarterback? That's what a year. What a year. What a sign of the times. But it was interesting in Chad's article, he points out over at milehighhuddle.com, fan voting only accounts for about 1/3 of the Pro Bowl tally. So I don't know if it's Broncos country showing up and showing out. I don't know if it's the rest of the league starting to show the Broncos a little bit more respect, but pretty impressive to see the NFL's most knowledgeable fan base show up for their Broncos. And we could debate who should be in there and who shouldn't, but a rookie quarterback, Bo Nix, seventh. I mean, not bad. A fullback, Michael Burton's up in the mix. I predicted Garrett Bowles to start to slip a little bit this year. He's done anything but. I mean, these are really, really good things, but there have been some under the radar players that have really popped, and I don't think they get their flowers enough. We try to give away flowers on this show, right? Like we're the floral department. Brandon Jones has been an excellent, awesome addition life post Justin Simmons. I mean, you're looking for an ideal guy to come in and take over one of the most important positions in the defensive secondary, and Brandon Jones hasn't missed a beat. I didn't see it coming from the Miami Dolphins, Tom.
Yeah, Malcolm Roach is another one. I didn't expect to see what we got from him. So that, I mean, there were some key pickups for sure, both in the draft and through free agency last season that has helped this team get to where they are. And the one Pro Bowler who's not number one, who I think should be, is fourth is great is Miners. I think he should be at the top. He's the best guard in the league, in my opinion, or at least one of the top two. So that was a bit of a surprise that he's not higher ranked, but you've got a really good nucleus of this team now. You've got 14 players, whether they deserve to be there or not in the Pro Bowl voting, but that there are a bunch of young players that are coming up that is set this team up for future success. And you hope that Sean Payton can put that together and take that next step next year. I still think they have a shot at the playoffs. They should be in the playoffs. All things considered, they should be able to beat the Chiefs. That's a huge step, but they want to be contenders. They need to add a few more pieces, and I think that they can.
Yeah, I like how Cody says this here. Look, man, the Pro Bowl, to some of us, it's a little bit of a joke. It's a little bit trivial. But to finally have a bunch of Denver Broncos qualifying, it just shows that the team has started to overcome and that culture change has been there. I completely agree with that, Cody. I think that's fair. And it's exciting, right? I mean, if this is year one with a Bo Nix, year two with a Sean Payton in his head coaching role, I think the trajectory for the Broncos is good right now. I'm not going to say that they're going to dominate the AFC West. Kansas City better watch out, but I think competition is finally back in the AFC West. You look at the Chargers, right? We haven't even brought them up, probably because I'm so damn bitter still. The LA Chargers get into the playoffs. They clinched their first playoff berth with a dominating win against the New England Patriots last week. it's crazy to see this AFC. It's crazy to see the NFC playoff picture. You have so much on the line this weekend for not only the Broncos, but the AFC North, right? In a battle, how are the Ravens and the Steelers going to finish things out? Yep. All these sorts of things, man. It's just so fun to have the Denver Broncos in the playoff picture. And I can be nervous. I could be upset with how they've done, but their work up until this point has put them in this position. And I really hope that they're not relying on others. Speaking of relying on others, Tom, there's a name I've been saving for this show because I have a complex set of reactions with this specific Denver Broncos. Okay. I'm sure you do. Riley Moss. Riley Moss made his anticipated return from a knee injury. He's missed 3 games, and boy, oh boy, did he need to knock some of the rust off. Yeah. I hear people saying Riley Moss is trash. I hear people saying Riley Moss shouldn't be in the starting lineup. I hear others saying he's still hurt. Where do you land on Riley Moss, and how would you play Riley Moss against the Kansas City Chiefs, if at all?
It's funny because when he went out and they started struggling on defense, everybody said it was Riley Moss being out that's causing all those problems. Now he came back and he struggled, and they're like, oh, Riley Moss is the problem. It's so weird, but yeah, put him out there. I mean, he is your best corner outside of Pat Surtain and McMillan in the slot, obviously, but yeah, you don't want to run anybody else out there. You just hope that he's back to his self again this game. But he either wasn't himself, or he was rusty, or what have you, or maybe the Bengals receivers are just better. I mean,
that's just it, dude. We're talking about T. Higgins, all right? He's not a rookie. And you're talking about Joe Burrow, who's one of the better quarterbacks, last I checked, in the NFL. It's impressive to watch what a quarterback like that can do, what a wide receiver like that can do. And at the end of the day, right, it's pretty bad, the stats. And T. Higgins got the better of Riley Moss. We all know that. 7 catches on 8 targets, 101 receiving yards, 2 tutties. And that's in 25 snaps that the two men lined up against each other. I put some of this on coaching, if I'm going to be honest. I don't know how able Riley Moss was out there. I think he's still hurt. They're all hurt, right? So that can't be an excuse. If you're out there, you better be willing to strap up. I'll tell you, I liked that Riley Moss does not give up. And I will say that louder for the people in the back. We've seen when cornerbacks give up, right? We watched one get cut just last week in Levi Wallace. You see what it looks like when guys give up. You're not seeing that on this Broncos team. So as disappointed as I was with them losing a heartbreaking overtime 30-24 game in Cincinnati, Sean was right in the fact that you are still seeing fight. I saw Riley Moss make some very good wrap-up tackles that other corners would probably make business decisions on, saying the game's lost, I'm sore, I'm ready to get to treatment. I like that. Do I think Riley Moss was put in the best position by his coaching staff? Absolutely not. I don't know what it's going to take to get this guy some help. While I don't necessarily want to trust a rookie corner, Chris Abrams-Drain has been playing particularly well also. So, Tom, I'm with you. I don't want to overreact on one bad game against a really good quarterback and a really good wide receiver. Yeah. On the other side, Pat Surtain dominates, right? Has a very, very good game. This was the Bengals' offensive game plan, going after Riley Moss.
Well, and we have to remember, too, they were on the road in Cincinnati against a really good offense who's actually a pretty good team other than their defense. Their defense has let them down, and they still had a chance to win the game, even with all the snafus. So yeah, it's not like they went there and just got completely blown out, and they don't even deserve to be on the same field. So remember that. Hopefully a few tweaks, a little bit more health from Riley Moss, that won't happen again against the backups of the Chiefs.
Look at our guy right here, Keith Brugman, man. There's a good friend of the show. Brand new year, same great guys. Happy New Year, Luke and Thomas. Man, Happy New Year to you, Keith, and your family. I hope all is well, and let's get this dub on Sunday, man. We need it, and hope you had great holidays coming from MHI. It really means a lot, Keith. Thank you for all your support over the years. And Phil, circling back around, man, your support is so great. Thank you. Phil saying, look, guys, one great thing. Carson Wentz cannot scramble like Pat Mahomes, and he also hangs on to the ball much longer. Should be able to play to Denver's defensive advantage. Riley Moss hit the field cold. Give him a week. Man, Phil, you gave me some goosebumps there, right? I just got done talking about Tom, like Riley's such a competitor. I love those wrap up tackles. I love the way he doesn't quit. I love his answer in the post game. I'm sure you saw it. It went kind of viral on social media. He's like, I ate a bleep sandwich. That's how I played today. I played like bleep. And that's how men need to handle their failures, right? That's how adults need to handle their, get out in front of it. Don't try to hide from it. Don't lie about it. Don't blame anybody else. Get out in front of it. Phil may be onto something here. Once again, Riley Moss hitting the field. I don't think it matters. It's against the Chiefs backups, and you never know which Chiefs backup wide receiver is just going to be the next great wide receiver for Pat Mahomes in upcoming seasons. Do you imagine Riley Moss has a bounce back game in Sunday, just like Phil?
I would imagine. I mean, you're not going up against their superstars. You better have a bounce back season. I mean, if he doesn't, then there's something. I think he might be still hurt, and they brought him back too soon.
Yeah, well, he's going against a number 2 overall pick. I mean, you can't take that away from Carson Wentz. Say what you want about Carson Wentz in his career. The guy's still getting paid. He's still in the league. And last I checked, he has a Super Bowl ring, right? It's crazy, man, to see how some of these quarterbacks come and they go. And what'd you make of Aaron Rodgers and the Jets, guys? Holy cow. I just got done watching the Netflix special on him, right? And he's kind of an entertaining guy one way or the other. Like, you either love him or you hate him. And I'm kind of right there in the middle where I'm like, what a train wreck. I can't wait to watch. I can't look away. I've never seen a fall off the cliff quarterback the way Aaron Rodgers played last week. Tom, is it done? You think Aaron Rodgers is hanging it up? Because I'm talking about Carson Wentz being a 2016 number 2 overall pick. The Broncos have Zach Wilson on their roster. I could remember making the case for Zach Wilson years ago, arguing with Nick, right, on these very airwaves back when we were on Saturdays. Zach Wilson's our guy. Zach Wilson's our guy. Hot damn. Zach Wilson is the Broncos guy. He may be number 3, but man, this quarterback carousel in the league is crazy, Tom.
Yeah. That whole organization, the Jets, is a disaster. But I'll tell you, I remember when Dan Marino tore his Achilles, and he was a younger man. He came back, had a couple pretty good seasons, but he dropped off pretty quick as he got older. He was wearing a special shoe, like a special brace and shoe and everything, just so you get out on the field. That kind of stuff for an old quarterback, that will drain your talent much faster than you can imagine, having an Achilles injury like he had.
Yeah, I hear you. And I think sometimes it's about when you come into the league and where you go, right? The dirty little secret is fit in the NFL. Anybody that's worth a squirt or will tell you that. It's just been interesting when you look at his career, right? He was with the Eagles for 4 seasons, the Colts for a cup of tea, the Commanders in 2022. And then I guess I forgot he was with the Rams last year, Tom. I kind of forget about Carson Wentz. But then I try to put myself in Carson Wentz's shoes, right? I mean, you're the Chiefs backup or you're any backup. This is your week. This is your Super Bowl. You get the number 1 reps in practice this week. You get coach's attention. You get all the best stuff this week. It's all on you. And man, how excited would you be if you're one of those Chiefs players, maybe making your first start for the Kansas City Chiefs ever, maybe your first NFL start, and your mission is to ruin the Broncos day and the Broncos season. Man, that's motivating in and of itself. And it's one of the reasons I'm so damn nervous, Tom.
Yeah, I mean, you have to remember, these are all professional football players. Just because they're not starting doesn't mean that they're not good at what they do. A lot of them are, special teamers. That's where they've made their money and everything. But in the NFL, if you're on the team, you are playing every Sunday unless you're the backup quarterback. You're playing in some form or fashion. It's not like they've all been riding the bench doing nothing and then all of a sudden they jump out there. They've been coached by a Hall of Fame coach, and it's a well-oiled machine. So you can't just say, oh, they're just scrubs off the street. They're going to roll over them. This is a professional football team. They just happen to be, taking a different role.
Well, and when their system, to your point, talking about the Hall of Fame head coach, is so dialed in, I mean, that's got to be nice, right? Then you're just getting guys in and you're trying to make sure they're doing the right thing. With the Broncos, it feels like we're still installing systems. We're loading, not quite there. Phil, circling back around, guys, is Tyler Bidet going to be active? Looking at the Broncos practice report today, Phil, Tyler Bidet was full with that back injury. You also had Nick Bonito listed with a wrist and Justin Sternad with a heel. Both of them practice for Vance Joseph's defense. And then you look at Zach Allen, big D line, right? Big cat. He was non-injury related illness. It was a rest day. He limited in some scope. That usually means they stretch and then take it easy. And then you had Frank Crum and Ben Powers that did not practice. Mike Kliss does say Ben Powers got a vet day. What's going on with these running backs, Phil? Tom, Chad, anybody? I mean, yeah. I can't figure out if we've debated on this show every Wednesday night. Is it an offensive line thing? Is it a coaching thing? Is it a running back thing? And I'll say it again. I'm not impressed with Luke Wattenberg, folks. Not impressed in the least bit. Alex Forsyth, I'm not calling for that man to start either. The Broncos have to address the center position. Yep. Luke Wattenberg is consistently losing over and over again, and they're not just on pass blocking snaps, folks. Phil, I know you're seeing what I'm seeing. He's getting driven back into the quarterback. You're seeing some ball security issues still with Luke Wattenberg, and I think about Chiefs game last, 2 months ago when the Broncos could have won and sent him on a winning streak. Yeah, Luke Wattenberg had a very bad game. I didn't forget. Tyler Bidet, should he play? Should he start? What should his role be on Sunday?
Yeah, I mean, I think they're trying to take it pretty careful with him with that kind of pretty freakish back injury that I didn't think he was even going to get back out on the field this year. I thought they were just going to say, next year, bring it up. But I think they realize he's healthy. And they need something, right? They need that spark. That's why he's been activated. I don't know if he'll be playing in the game or not, but they'll probably are making this move to prepare for the playoffs, have that extra guy that, waiting in the wings, basically.
Yeah, and Chad's been rocking with us on the ones and twos tonight and answering my call saying, look, man, it kind of feels like Sean's just trying to get by. And that's exactly what it feels like, right? The cupboards are bare, but maybe the account's low. Maybe you don't have gas in the car. Maybe you're not feeling good. And you don't want to go to the grocery store. You're trying to put together a meal with whatever you got, right? Maybe we got some crackers over here, some cheese over here, a can of soup. I don't know. We're going to throw it together and hope for the best. Is it going to taste good? Probably not. Is it going to keep us alive? Yeah, we may get sick a few times, but that has been the story of this Broncos running game. Yeah. And it continues to make me scratch my head. I grew up in a very privileged time, the Mike Shanahan days. Perhaps you've heard of him. He, the same guy that can plug any guy out of the mall, 16th Street Mall, and turn him into a Broncos 1,000-yard rusher. To not have that here in 2024, man, it just feels so suspect. It feels sacrilege, dare I say. This has to be a priority, not only this week, but for the offseason.
Absolutely. I think it has to be center and it has to be running back, both. I mean, they've got to address both of those positions. You're right about Wattenberg. He's very underwhelming. You kind of think back, like, had they been able to have Cushenberry one more year before he took that walk in free agency, what this offensive line and this running game would be like. You never know. So
the one that got away, Lloyd Cushenberry, huh? The one that got away.
Yeah. Well, yeah. He did get away. He was playing pretty good, but I think they should address the center position in free agency and go to the draft for running back.
Me too, because it's the center. You're going to get a rookie center and then go through those growing pains with a second-year quarterback? No, I completely agree. And Michael Renquillo, thank you so much for all of your support. I see you doing those big things over on the Mile High Huddle podcast. We appreciate all of your support on every single show, morning and night. And a heartfelt message here with this donation. Thoughts and prayers for New Orleans, folks. It's a crazy world that we live in, and I'll throw Las Vegas in there. I saw a headline before we hopped on the show. There was some trouble out in Las Vegas as well. So thoughts and prayers to absolutely everybody who is having a tough day today, because while we try to keep it loose, we certainly understand this is, like I said, a crazy world that we live in, and we have to take care of each other. So thoughts and prayers to everybody out there in Louisiana and Nevada.
Yeah. Thank you, Michael, for sending these stars and for the thoughts and prayers for those in New Orleans. Appreciate it.
And Georgia, let's not forget Georgia, right? Nasty Scott's neck of the woods. There's some nasty tornadoes, some nasty weather. I mean, we try to give as many flowers, thoughts and prayers, and recognition on this show because you guys keep us going. We try to be a healthy escape from that crazy thing that we call life. And Keith coming back around. Riley Moss didn't seem to have his legs fully underneath him. Maybe it's a lingering injury. Maybe it's conditioning coming back from the injury. I like it. I think maybe it's a little bit of both. And maybe Vance Joseph isn't the defensive secondary whiz that we thought he was. I mean, this guy has been doing so much better. I really hate to try to rail on him, but I got to be honest, this falls on Sean. It really does. Sean had to have VJ, but Sean's doing the exact same thing VJ's doing. He's not being adaptable. He's being stubborn. He's being predictable. So it's really hard for me to want to get after VJ. Remember when VJ never blitzed? Tom, you remember when that was like? Well, now he's blitzing all the time. And yes, the Broncos have the number one defense in terms of sacks. Yes, they've been putting quarterbacks on their backs. It's starting to hurt the secondary. They're starting to get caught a little bit. And I think Keith's on to something here. Riley Moss was a victim of some of that schematic probability, some of that those tells Vance Joseph and Sean Payton ultimately give other teams.
Yeah, no, I think there's something with Riley Moss. I mean, you may be right, Keith. Obviously, if you look back how he played the entire season leading up to his injury, he was playing great. So you can't just all of a sudden say, oh, well, he's a bad player now. Well, there's something going on. And maybe it is the injury. Maybe he does need a little bit more time coming back, just like you said, Keith. Something. This will tell. This Sunday's game will tell us what Riley Moss is all about, whether he, just needed to come back from the injury a little bit and, how he plays great. Then we're all back on the Riley Moss is a great player bandwagon.
Yeah, that's got to be one of the hardest positions, right? Running backwards, and calls never go your way either. And for crying out loud, maybe it's the homer in me, maybe it's the fan in me. I feel like the refs have had the Broncos number the last 2 weeks, Tom. I'm not making excuses. The referees aren't the reason that the Broncos have lost the last 2 games. They deserved to lose the last 2 games, and I'm still a little pissed off about it. But, man, some of these calls, I start to wonder. I'm like, And it'll be interesting to see. We all love to give the Kansas City Chiefs hell for the refs and the favoritism. We'll see what kind of favoritism they have with the backups here in Denver, Colorado this Sunday. And Phil asking, explain to me, after turning down a 2-point conversion, you get the football back after holding Cincinnati, needing to just run the clock out. Why did we not run the ball? Well, it's because the Broncos can't run the ball, Phil. It's not for lack of trying, although sometimes it is because their offensive play caller just wants to prove everybody right about Bo. Coach, you were right. Can we say it louder? Everybody at the same. Coach Sean Payton, you were right about Bo Nix. Everyone else was wrong. You're the smartest guy ever. Now stop trying to reinvent the wheel. I do not need this guy throwing 45 times a game. I don't want Bo Nix regressing. And I got to be honest, it feels like some of Sean Payton's play calling, at least in the first half of these games or last week against Cincinnati, been way too safe. I don't know if he's afraid of Bo throwing turnovers or what the deal is, but it's uncharacteristic of Sean Payton to be gun shy, Tom, and that's what I have a problem with. I mean, if you would have told me, Phil, Tom, Chad, Broncos country, if you would have told me Sean Payton would have kicked the PAT instead of going for the 2-point in the win, I'd have called you crazy. There was no way I'd believe that. Yet this is the world we're living in, Tom.
Yeah. And in his press conference, he even said, he's like, well, we had to, I can't remember if a tie got him in, if it had to be a win or not, but if he's worried about tying and that would have helped him, why the heck did he not run the clock out? I mean, try at least. If you're going to run it out at the end for a tie, you already played for the tie to begin with. Why not finish the job instead of screwing it up and then losing?
Yeah. It's and he's been fiery about it. Like Sean's funny because he likes to come out and get in front of things, right? He didn't like to hide around things. Now there's stuff that that question. It was asked post game, but reporters here in Denver, they're pretty friendly. They're nice folks, right? Most of them. And they don't like to get after coach because they don't want coach to get after them. And he will. We've all seen Sean go after media guy, not so much media gal, but media guy. And you could tell when Sean talked on Monday, he's like, look, I want to just get this out of the way now because I know everybody's going to ask. I've been thinking about it since Saturday night. I've had time to think about the damn 2-point conversion. One thing that'll make me feel a little bit better, Phil, it's throwback week again. We got that going for us. I mean, I like that. I wish these were the home threads. I'm talking, of course, about the 1977 throwback threads that the Broncos will be rolling out. Remember, folks, they beat the Las Vegas Raiders, right? Week 4 or 5 wearing these. This was the infamous set of uniform colors, Tom, that Bo was yelling at Sean with. I don't know if you remember that.
I do.
I'll never forget it. I almost want to get like a framed picture and have both men sign it. You never see somebody yelling at Sean Payton. Maybe Bo's that guy. I asked you that question early on, right? Does anybody push back? Maybe the Broncos rookie quarterback is the only one with a pair of stones to push back against Sean Payton in that building right now.
Let's hope so. You know what I really don't want to happen is Sean to be like, oh, I was too conservative this last game and we ended up losing. I'm going to be too aggressive in the next game and make a bunch of errors. So let's just hope that he goes out with a nice game plan and doesn't have to worry about being too aggressive in order to win this game. But I could just see it happening. He's like, oh, second guessing himself all of a sudden without somebody telling him, stop being so damn aggressive and just go win the ball game.
Yeah, man. Well, I hadn't even thought about that, Tom, but you're exactly right. I mean, I'm talking about challenging Sean. What Sean is challenging Sean right now. And he's like, man, you've been losing coaching challenges. It's time to win some of these. We're going to start challenging a lot more. We're going to go for it on fourth down a lot more. One thing the Broncos don't have, and I read about it over at milehighhuddle.com, 14 Broncos finish in the top 10 in the fan Pro Bowl voting. Chad Jensen has an article up. The Broncos don't have the same problem that the 49ers have with the kicker, right? Where you have to worry about Will Lutz coming out there and screwing it up. Will Lutz, of course, makes the list. He's been a special teams ace for the Denver Broncos here in his second season. He averages about 2 or 3 AFC special teams player of the weeks per season, at least in his first 2 years with the Broncos. So dare I say it's okay to kick some field goals. Yeah, I mean, that's all right, Sean. We don't need to blow the second stringers out. All you need to do is win, even if it's by a single point. Guys, it's Wednesday night. He's Thomas Hall. If you'd like to reach out to Tom on X, that's at Thomas Hall NFL. Yours truly at Luke Patterson LP. Don't forget to head on over to the mothership at Mile High Huddle. We would definitely like to beef up the follows for this podcast. That's at MHI_pod. And folks, we are just about to our last segment here. Last chance to get any questions, comments, concerns, predictions. What could ramifications be if the Broncos lose? Man, pitchforks and lanterns. That's what I'm thinking. If the Broncos lose this football game, of course, Carson Wentz gets the start for the Kansas City Chiefs, and man, maybe that's why I'm nervous. I'm not like sweating Carson Wentz, but I'm sweating Andy Reid. I'm sweating the Chiefs franchise. I'm sweating their culture, and he is still Carson Wentz, a first-round Super Bowl winning quarterback that's coming into Denver, Colorado. And I hate to be Lloyd Christmas saying, so you're telling me there's a chance. I think about what Phil said about Riley Moss. Is this team going to come out hungry? Is this team going to come pissed off, Tom? I mean, it's the tale of two teams with this Broncos squad, and you never know what you're going to get.
Yeah, they better come out playing to win from the get-go. I don't want to see this, it was just the backups. We're going to go out there and roll them over without realizing that it's a good team coming in here. But we also have to remember that Carson Wentz is playing with a bunch of backups. It's not like Carson Wentz stepping in because Mahomes is hurt or something, and he's playing with all the starters and the talent is out there on the field. So, and I think the Broncos know that, but they better not play like that. They better not play like, oh, we got this in the bag already. They better go out there and play to win and execute well. That's been their problem, is their execution, and it's cost them. And so they need to go out there and execute like they're playing the real Chiefs, knowing that they can't screw up.
Exactly. Well, and do you think the Broncos have been looking at it that way the last 2 weeks, Tom? That like, that's okay. If we don't lose this one, we've got the next one. And that's okay. If we don't get this one, we've got no, you don't have anymore. I mean, I can't remember a scenario like this. Maybe it's been that long since the Broncos have been in the playoffs, but I mean, you get 3 weeks in a row and you almost get a get out of jail free card in 2 of those. I mean, that's the NFL football gods giving you a gift and you just spitting in their face the last 2 weeks. And maybe that's why I'm so nervous. I'm afraid the NFL, the football gods, they're going to put the hex on the Broncos for what they've been doing the last 2 weeks. But no, I go down the depth chart just like everybody else, and I look at the injury report, and there are some names that I'm going to be happy that aren't playing, right? Pat Mahomes, Travis Kelce, Isaiah Pacheco, those names lead it. But on the defense, I mean, Chris Jones, like Zach Allen and Chris Jones, that's the level of Zach Allen this year. Zach Allen is the Broncos' Chris Jones, dare I say. I mean, I didn't think I would ever say that, Tom. And to not have a guy like Chris Jones going, probably Drew Tranquill out, Nick Bolton, Leo Chenal, all the Chiefs defense that we've learned to hate over the years. I'm not going to miss any of those guys, but their backups, like I said, man, they're going to be hungry. And I really hope that it doesn't bite Denver.
Yeah, I do too. Again, come out and play like your playoff hopes depend on it, which they do. Come out and play like this is the Chiefs starters and you've got to do everything right in order to beat them, just like you did basically in Kansas City earlier in the year. Play like that without the botched field goal, of course. That's what I'm looking for, because if they don't, that's on Sean Payton. I'm sorry. That Sean Payton needs to have this team ready to play regardless of them being backups or not. They need to be focused and they need to go out there and execute well. And if they don't, if they go out and lose to the Chiefs backups, that blame for me. I don't care who messes up in the game. That's Sean Payton's fault.
I completely agree with you, man. And that's why I'm at least having the hard conversation. Do you think Greg Penner ever yells at Sean Payton?
I don't know.
Do you think Sean Payton ever gets yelled at in general? Because the only person I could see yelling at Sean Payton is Roger Goodell. Because they hate each other. I mean, I don't know, man. It's going to be fun. I appreciate you guys rocking with us here on New Year's Day. We're going to tie a big red bow on this here in just a second. And Phil, when was the last time the Broncos were favored by 9 against the Chiefs? Man, a long time, but it still doesn't make me comfortable, Phil. I'm still nervous. So nervous. And Jordan T coming in here, man. Thanks over on YouTube for the Generous 5. What has to happen besides injury for Sean Payton to go to the backup quarterback, given it's basically win or go home? Would that crush Nick's development? Hashtag hypothetical. Yeah, there's no turning back, Jordan. It's we're believers here in Denver, even the ones that don't like Nick's here. Understand that he is a first-round quarterback. The Broncos gave up a lot to get Sean and essentially gave up a lot to get a new quarterback in Bo. I know they didn't have to trade up to go get him, but they're living in cap hell post Russell Wilson release. So I think Bo's the guy. I see what you're doing here. The hypotheticals you're playing with me with regards to what happens if the Broncos lose. Man, they can't lose, right? The Broncos can't. They don't have a choice in this one. I mean, I expect the fans to show up and show out. It should be a really, really fun game, Jordan. But I don't know. I guess just to not cop out on Jordan's question, maybe Zach Wilson should get some more looks instead of Jarrett Stidham, huh? I mean, remember, Sean said, I want to get Zach Wilson a job and I want to get him dollars, whether that's here or elsewhere. Maybe some teams start calling on Zach Wilson in the offseason.
I think the only reason he gets in is because it's a huge blowout and they're throwing the backups in. Because, number one, Bo Nix as a rookie is better than Stidham and better than Wilson already. Zach Wilson had the worst start of one of the worst, historically worst first 3 seasons as a quarterback in NFL history. If you adjust for era, terrible. Stidham's not very good. Bo Nix is the better quarterback. Even if he's struggling out there, you still leave him out there. I think it's a blowout, and then Stidham trots in, or maybe he goes with Zach Wilson. I don't know I don't remember the full rules if Stidham has to get hurt for Zach Wilson to come in or whatever. But I think it's Nix or bust.
Nix or bust. I love it. If you'd like to reach out to Tom on X, please do so. That's at Thomas Hall NFL. Yours truly at Luke Patterson LP. Head on over to the mothership. That's at Mile High Huddle. Don't forget milehighhuddle.com. We've got some articles up right now. Chad's got one running, including 14 Denver Broncos finishing in the top 10 with regards to fan Pro Bowl voting. We'll preview the Chiefs here a little bit on the milehighhuddle.com website. I will have keys to victory over tomorrow on Thursday, and away we go into this new year. Broncos country into the playoffs? Question mark. Hopefully this is the way.
This is the way.